Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer, and today we're here for something new actually. I'm starting a new series, Civilization VI In Depth, where I'm going to go in depth on some of the mechanics of Civilization VI, and some strategies you can use to help improve your Civilization VI games. So without further ado, let's get into it. In this first episode, we're going to be going over the Government Plaza, as per viewer request. I believe in the next one, we're going to go over tourism and culture victories and how all that works, because it is quite complicated. But let's get into it with the Government Plaza. So the Government Plaza is a new district that was added in Rise and Fall, and it is one that unlocks with state workforce. You can place it, I believe it has to be on flatland tiles. I'm not 100% sure. You might be able to put it on hills. I wasn't 100% sure about that. But what it does is it adds +8 loyalty per turn to the city it is constructed in. It gives 1 adjacency bonus to all adjacent districts. One thing to note here is that with the Sayawan, it doesn't add 1 to the Sayawan, but it doesn't take 1 away from the Sayawan. So it just kind of has no effect on the Sayawan district. And the Sayawan would normally lose 1 science for an adjacent district, but the Government Plaza does not affect it. And in addition to this, the Governor Plaza provides you with +1 governor title. So the strategy with the Government Plaza, normally what you want to do is you want to try to surround it with as many districts as you can. So whenever you're planning out your districts at the beginning of the game, what you can do is you can plan most of your districts around where they're going to get high adjacency bonuses, and then just kind of pick where you can put your Government Plaza so that it'll be adjacent to the most districts that you can put it next to. So that's the general strategy with the Government Plaza. It's not too complex, but it does open the way for a lot more things. So let's go ahead and get on to the Tier 1 buildings that are available for the Government Plaza. All of the Tier 1 buildings for the Government Plaza provide legacy cards for your government that you have at the time of building the specific building in the Government Plaza. So they are as follows. If you have Autocracy, you will get Autocratic Legacy, which provides +1 yields to all government buildings and the palace in a city. If you have Oligarchy, you get Oligarchic Legacy, which gives all land, melee, anti-cav, and naval melee units +4 combat strength. And if you have Classical Republic, you will get Republican Legacy, which makes it so that all cities with a district receive +1 housing and +1 amenity. So starting from the top here with Autocratic Legacy, +1 yields to all government buildings and the palace in a city. It's not bad, but I mean, it doesn't tend to make a huge difference. It's one that I typically find, like, maybe you could run it right after you get it, but after that, you're probably not going to want to run Autocratic Legacy, because it's just, +1 yield isn't going to show very much change whenever you're later in the game, and you have quite high yields in your cities. But towards the early stages of the game, if you can happen to get it quite early, Autocratic Legacy can be pretty okay. As far as Oligarchic Legacy goes, all land, melee, anti-cav, and naval melee units gain +4 combat strength. If you're going for early aggression, Oligarchic Legacy actually can be quite good. So that is something that you can look towards whenever you're researching civics and you're planning on going early aggression. So you might want to plop down your government district and build any of the Tier 1 buildings, which I'll go into, and just adopt the Oligarchic Legacy card, because +4 combat strength, it's not a ton, but it's definitely enough to make a difference in fights. So a pretty good policy. Republican Legacy, all cities with a district receive +1 housing and +1 amenity. Republican Legacy is actually one that can be useful throughout the whole game, I find. Just because getting 1 housing and more so the 1 amenity is something I find, especially if you're playing someone like Scotland that really likes their amenities. They like to have happy cities. Having Republican Legacy can help, especially if you're going tall, just because then you're pretty much guaranteed to have a district in every city. Not so much if you're wide. I mean, you would hope to have a district in every city, but it's not a guarantee. So Republican Legacy is also a pretty nice card. I typically like to use it more so for the amenities than the housing, but you can use it however you would like. So now let's move on to the Tier 1 buildings of the Government Plaza. It should be noted that in order to build any of the Tier 1 buildings, all that you have to do is have a Tier 1 government and a Government Plaza. So that's how all the tiers of buildings work. They become available the second that you adopt a tier of government. So a Tier 1 of government, a Tier 2 of government, or a Tier 3 of government will unlock the various tiers of government buildings. So first up, for Tier 1s, we have the Audience Chamber, and it provides +1 amenity and +4 housing in cities with governors, and it also takes away 2 loyalty in cities without governors, and it gives +1 governor title. So the Audience Chamber is super good if you plan on going tall, because it gives you the +1 amenity and +4 housing. +4 housing is actually quite a bit. So if you're planning on going tall, so you're not going to go, more than 7 cities, which would be the number of governors, Audience Chamber can be a very nice pickup. If you are planning on going wide, I would not recommend the Audience Chamber, because you don't want to lose 2 loyalty in cities without governors, because the farther and farther your cities get away from your capital, loyalty becomes a problem, and you definitely don't want to be losing 2 loyalty. If you're planning on going domination as well, definitely stay away from the Audience Chamber, once again, because you do not want to lose that 2 loyalty. Moving on, though, we have the Ancestral Hall, which provides plus 50% production towards settlers, and new cities receive a free builder. Well, as much like how the Audience Chamber was for going tall, the Ancestral Hall is for going wide. Plus 50 production towards settlers is actually quite nice. I believe that you can indeed combine that with the policy card that gives you another 50% production towards settlers, so you can effectively double your production towards settlers by using the Ancestral Hall and that policy card. And new cities receiving a free builder is really, really nice, just because the ability to get down, like a farm or a mine or something like that can speed up the rate at which your city, grows to be at least somewhat competent, like immeasurably, because having a few tile improvements as opposed to having none can make a huge difference whenever a city is, just been founded. So for going wide, the Ancestral Hall is definitely very nice. You could even maybe go with it if you want to go tall. I mean, like, if you're aiming for like the 7-city ideal tall strategy, you still could get the Ancestral Hall if you just want to get your settlers out fast and you're going to get some free builders, so that way you can build up your cities like nice and quickly. You still could go for the Ancestral Hall, so overall the Ancestral Hall is it's a quite nice building. And lastly, for the tier 1s, we have the Warlord's Throne, which makes it so that capturing an enemy city gives plus 20% production towards all cities for 5 turns. So this is something that synergizes very well with going early aggression. What it can allow you to do is it can help you, whenever you go and take cities, getting the plus 20% production can help make up for any units that you may have lost in the siege, or even to help you steamroll just a little bit more. Maybe you can totally wipe a civilization out nice and early if you have the Warlord's Throne, because once you take one of their cities, you can build more units, and then which will allow you to take more cities, which will allow you to build more units, and you can just repeat that over and over again. So if you're going early aggression, the Warlord's Throne is a very good idea. And in addition to all this stuff, all of the tier 1 buildings provide plus 1 governor title. I haven't really been mentioning that, but it is listed. I mean, it's nice, but they all provide it equally, so that is just something to note. Let's move on to the tier 2 policies, though. All of the Tier 2 policies will be available for unlock, as well as the Tier 2 buildings whenever you acquire a Tier 2 government. So whether it be Merchant Republic, Monarchy, or Theocracy, you can get any of the Tier 2 stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at the legacy cards that are in the second tier. So first up, we have Mercantile Legacy, which provides plus 10% gold in cities with an established governor. We have a Monarchic Legacy, which provides plus 1 housing per level of walls. We have Theocratic Legacy, which provides plus 5 religious combat strength and plus 0.5 faith per turn per citizen in cities with an established governor. So starting from the top again, Mercantile Legacy, I find it to be quite nice. Plus 10% gold in cities with an established governor. It's very nice if you're going tall, especially if Reina is the governor in the city, because, Reina can make it so that you get plus 1 gold per citizen in the city, or maybe is it plus 2? It's either plus 1 or plus 2 that Reina can give per citizen in the city. So if you're going to get a plus 10% gold in addition to that, you could be getting quite a bit of gold. And then that's in all cities with established governors, so you get pretty much, as long as you don't have more cities than you do governors, then that gives you 10% overall gold bonus, which is quite nice, especially if you like to, buy units or anything like that. So you could do this with domination, and you could use the gold to buy units. You could use the gold to buy buildings. So overall, Mercantile Legacy, I find that if you're going to be getting Merchant Republic, Mercantile Legacy is a pretty okay card to run. Next up, we have Monarchic Legacy, which is plus 1 housing per level of walls. And I'm going to be honest, Monarchic Legacy, it's just really not good. Plus 1 housing per level of walls, I don't find that I am, at that point in the game, I'm probably not going to have more than, level 2 walls, and plus 2 housing, it's not bad, but, it's really not that good. Especially if you're settled near, water or anything like that. I mean, if you do have a city that's not settled on fresh water, plus 1 or plus 2 housing could be nice. But overall, I don't find Monarchic Legacy to be that useful, so that's not one I would particularly recommend you run. And lastly, we have Theocratic Legacy, which is +5 religious combat strength and plus 0.5 faith per turn per citizen in cities with established governors. So Theocratic Legacy is super nice if you're going religion. One of the things I find to be super nice is the +5 religious combat strength, because if you combine that with Moksha, that gives you plus, I forget how much religious combat strength within tiles of cities, you can really just use that to kill all of the other religion's apostles whenever they come into your territory. You can just stomp them, and actually just having +5 religious combat strength is going to make it so that you're pretty much going to win every single religious fight, unless your opponent also has Theocratic Legacy running. So it is very nice. That helps you just spread your religion and get rid of other religions very nicely. And in addition, the plus 0.5 faith per turn per citizen is quite nice. So Theocratic Legacy, if you're going for a religion, I definitely do recommend running Theocratic Legacy. So with that in mind, let's move on to the Tier 2 buildings. The first of the Tier 2 buildings is the Foreign Ministry, which makes it so that leveraging city-states costs only half gold, and in addition to that, leveraged units gain +4 combat strength, and as always, you get +1 governor title. So the Foreign Ministry I don't find to be particularly useful, just because I don't believe I've ever made good use of leveraging the military of a city-state. Some of you might not even know that's in the game, but yeah, you can pay money to gain control over city-state units for like a certain number of turns. I think it's like 15 or 30 or 20 or something like that. So if you've ever actually managed to find a way to make that useful, then the Foreign Ministry can be quite good, because I believe it is pretty expensive, so reducing the cost in half is very nice, and the +4 combat strength is going to mean that you're going to have stronger units than whoever you're fighting. So if you have found a way to make use of this, you could be playing Domination, and you could use this to give yourself like a quick burst of units. Maybe if the opponent's near a city-state that you're particularly friendly with, you can take their military and go attack them, but outside of that, definitely don't build the Foreign Ministry. Next up, we have the Grand Master's Chapel, which grants the ability to buy land units with faith, and pillaging improvements and districts provides bonus faith. So the Grand Master's Chapel is a mixed bag. The ability to buy land units with faith is pretty nice, but pillaging improvements and districts providing bonus faith, I don't find that to be particularly useful. So you can use the Grand Master's Chapel if you're planning on going, well, for two reasons, really. The first of which is if you're going for Domination Religion Wombo combo, and you're using the thing that, I forget what it's, I always forget the name of the policy card, but the one that gives you increased combat strength around cities of your religion. So if you're going, for like Domination with that in mind, then you can also build the Grand Master's Chapel, and then you'll have the ability to buy land units with faith, which can just help bolster your military a little bit, give you a quick burst if maybe you've been stockpiling faith throughout the game, and then you can just go in and steamroll somebody. So that is definitely a nice use that you could have of the Grand Master's Chapel. The other thing would be if you're going for a religious game, and maybe there's another opponent that's been building a lot of religious wonders, and you really want to take the city because like you're struggling and they're just pushing out a bunch of apostles, or maybe you want to take one of their cities that they have a big holy site in. You could use the Grand Master's Chapel to give you get yourself a bunch of land units, and then you could just go in and take the city, take their holy site, take their wonders, and have a great time. So if you are planning on going for any of those like use cases, then the Grand Master's Chapel is a pretty good building. But I still don't think it's the best of the Tier 2. Speaking of the best of the Tier 2, we have the Intelligence Agency up next, and it grants a free spy. It provides +1 spy capacity, and it also makes it so that all spy operations have a higher chance of success. So the Intelligence Agency, I think, is very good. Getting a free spy, I mean, that's pretty nice on its own. You can pretty much, it's a free spy, and the Intelligence Agency production cost is not that different from the production cost of a spy. So it is pretty much just free. Also, +1 spy capacity, very nice. Then maybe you could have, one in your two rival civilizations to go steal some techs, or to spy, obviously to spy on them, or to get some info, or steal some great works, or anything like that. So +1 spy capacity is nice. All spy operations having a higher chance of success. Once again, very nice. That way your spies won't die. You can steal all the tech, steal all the great works, siphon all the funds. And overall, the Intelligence Agency is it's just such a great building. Spies are, I think, one of the best things in Civ 6, and there's something that a lot of people underrate, but spies are incredibly powerful, and the Intelligence Agency just makes them that much better. So, almost no matter what you're going for, maybe the only thing I would say, don't 100% get the Intelligence Agency is if you're going for, religion, or maybe Domination, but if you're going for either science or culture, definitely pick up the Intelligence Agency. It is a great building. Moving on from that, though, we have the Tier 3 Legacy cards, which, of course, will unlock, much like with the Tier 3 buildings, whenever you have a Tier 3 government. So whenever you either get democracy, communism, or fascism, you will get the ability to build any of the buildings, which will give you the cards when you build them. So first up, we have Communist Legacy, which provides +4, I wish it was +4, plus 0.4 production per citizen in cities with an established governor. We also have Fascist Legacy, which makes it so that all units gain +4 combat strength and war weariness is decreased by 15%. And lastly, we have Democratic Legacy, which gives every city +2 production and +1 housing per district. So starting from the top, Communist Legacy, I tend to quite like Communist Legacy, +0.4 production per citizen in cities with an established governor. If you're going tall, this is very nice because you'll probably get that in every city. But if you're going for a space victory, this can be very nice, especially in the capital because it's per citizen, so by then your capital is probably pretty big. So, you know, getting 20 times 0.4 production can be pretty nice in cities. So Communist Legacy is one that I find myself running quite decently, but it's definitely not a must-have. Fascist Legacy. Fascist Legacy is very good if you're going for a domination victory and you haven't won yet. +4 combat strength is, well, it's very nice. And another thing is the war weariness part that I actually find to be particularly useful, because that late in the game, whenever you start losing units or anything like that, war weariness actually can accumulate quite quickly, and you don't want it to become a problem, so having it decrease by 15% is definitely very nice, because you don't want your cities to, you know, spawn barbarians and then just give you a nightmare of a time. So Fascist Legacy, if you are going domination and, you know, you still have a while to go, I would definitely run Fascist Legacy. Democratic Legacy. Democratic Legacy also can be pretty good, especially if you're going for space race. Getting +2 production per district. It's not going to give you as much as Communist Legacy, but you also are going to get +1 housing for every one of your districts. So if you're that can help you build your cities up really tall. You can get huge cities if you have, you know, 4 or 5 districts in a city at that point. That's +5 housing, which is that's certainly pretty appreciable. I don't think Democratic Legacy is all that great, and it's definitely not a must-run. So it's probably even lesser of a priority than the other two, but it is not a bad policy nonetheless. As far as Tier 3 buildings are concerned, first we have the National History Museum, which provides +4 spots for any great work and +1 governor title, as per tradition. So National History Museum, if you're going culture, I would recommend picking up the National History Museum. 4 spots for any great work, it's actually not that many, but late in the game, whenever you have like a lot of multipliers on the tourism that's produced by great works, it can be actually quite a bit of extra tourism. And another thing is that late in the game, I tend to find that I have a bunch of great artists sitting around with nowhere to put their art. So getting +4 spots, that allows me to, you know, have somewhere for my artists to go throw their work. So overall, National History Museum, if you're going culture, it's pretty good. If you're not going culture, there's almost no reason to get it. But it's still a pretty okay building. Next up, we have the Royal Society, which gives builders a unique ability that allows them to use all of their build charges to rush district projects, and you can do that once per city per turn. And, of course, you get the +1 governor title. So Royal Society is... I still haven't decided if I think it's really good or really just eh. One thing that should be noted is that you can use this charge to boost space race parts. So boosting, you know, like maybe you can just buy a bunch of builders or have your other cities produce builders and then use those builders to rush your space race parts. That is definitely something that you could do, because that effectively allows you to have have the time that you would need to build a space race part. So it is something that is very useful for that. You also could use it if you're running like cultural, what are they called? The cultural district projects. I don't remember exactly what the name of the district project is. That generates you know, writer and artist and musician points. You could use the builder charges to just rush those and get points a little bit faster. So that is something else you could do with that. So overall, the Royal Society, it's pretty good, I think. It definitely has, you know, the fact that you can only do it once per city per turn really prevents it from being like overpowered, and that is something that has to be there. But overall, it's still pretty good. And lastly, we have the War Department, which makes it so that all units heal up to 20 HP when they eliminate an enemy unit. So the War Department, if you're going domination, is a very good idea. Healing up to 20 HP when you eliminate a unit is just going to make it so that you lose a lot less units, hopefully, lose a lot less units. And it's just very nice because also not losing units means that you're not going to accumulate as much war weariness, which is just going to help overall. So if you are planning on going for domination, I definitely do recommend the War Department. So the last thing I would like to go over is just some recommended building orders, just to help you bolster your gameplay and like help you build specifically to what victory you're going for by using the government district and the government buildings. So if you're going for a domination victory, the tier 1 building you should go for is definitely the Warlord's Throne. Unless you're getting it really late, that it's not going to provide too much benefit, I would definitely get the Warlord's Throne. Another thing you could possibly get is the Ancestral Hall to get, you know, if you want to just play wide and expand early and then attack later. That is something else you could do, but I would mostly recommend the Warlord's Throne. As far as Tier 2 goes, I would recommend the Foreign Ministry or the Grand Master's Chapel. Foreign Ministry, if you actually have found a way to utilize city-state leveraging, I would recommend the Foreign Ministry. But Grand Master's Chapel is another really nice one if you have some faith that you can use. And the intelligence agency is always just a nice thing to have, especially to steal some techs. I didn't list it here just for the sake of not taking up too much space, but you pretty much can't go wrong with the intelligence agency. So that is, you're pretty much gonna be okay no matter what you get for Tier 2 with domination. It really just depends on if you have a lot of gold, if you have a lot of faith, or if you're just kind of, you know, looking to steal some techs and, you know, light some stuff on fire and whatnot. And as far as Tier 3 goes, the definite one there is the War Department, just because healing units is very nice. And it's really just the only one that's like super tailored towards domination, so it's a pretty easy pickup for the War Department there. If you're going for a science victory, for Tier 1, I would recommend either the Audience Chamber or the Ancestral Hall. Get the Audience Chamber if you're playing tall, and get the Ancestral Hall if you plan on playing wide. Those are pretty self-explanatory. They both provide pretty nice bonuses, and really, either one that you get, you can't really go wrong with as long as it suits the playstyle you're going for. So once again, if you're going tall, get the Audience Chamber, and if you're going wide, get the Ancestral Hall. As far as Tier 2 goes, really the only great pick for Tier 2 Science is Intelligence Agency, which is going to allow you to steal a bunch of techs from your allies or your allies. I hope you're not stealing them from your allies or opponents. And also having more spies and making spies have a greater chance of success is going to help in the late game whenever you can sabotage enemy spaceports. So the Intelligence Agency is a pretty good pickup. It's definitely the best of the Tier 2s. As far as Tier 3 goes, I would definitely recommend the Royal Society, just because of the ability to rush the space parts is something that you're not really going to get with anything else. And in addition, the other two buildings are really tailored towards different victories, so the Royal Society is once again a pretty easy pickup here. If you plan on going for a culture victory, the Tier 1 buildings that I would recommend are, once again, the Audience Chamber or the Ancestral Hall, for the same reasons as the Science Victory. They just provide some nice bonuses, so get the Audience Chamber if you're playing tall, or the Ancestral Hall if you're playing wide. For Tier 2, I would, once again, recommend the Intelligence Agency, just because you can use all those spies to steal some great works from your opponents, which is going to reduce their tourism and help you get more tourism, so just a very nice thing to do. And lastly, the Tier 3, once again, a pretty straightforward thing here, the National History Museum. You could maybe go for the Royal Society as well, but I would still recommend the National History Museum, unless you're doing one of those things where you win a culture victory without, you know, building any theater squares, which is the thing that people do. You know, they use seaside resorts and national parks instead. But if you're going for, you know, just a nice, straightforward, easy culture victory, definitely get the National History Museum. And finally, if you're going for a religious victory, once again, start out with the Audience Chamber or the Ancestral Hall for pretty much the exact same reasons as before. Get the Audience Chamber if you're going tall, or the Ancestral Hall if you're going wide. For Tier 2, you can get the Grand Master's Chapel. Religion is the only one that I don't think the Intelligence Agency is very good for, because you can't really, like, use it to bolster your religion at all, really, because, like, with science, you can, you know, steal techs and sabotage spaceports. With culture, you can steal great works, but with religion, you can't really do anything with the Intelligence Agency. So the Grand Master's Chapel is just a pretty nice pickup there. And lastly, I would recommend the National History Museum, just because I don't quote me on this 100%, but I believe that you can put relics in the National History Museum, and religious art and religious relics are nice because they give you faith. So the other two Tier 3 buildings don't really help religion actually really at all. So the National History Museum is just kind of the closest shoe-in. There really aren't any Tier 3 buildings that help religion very much, so that's something to keep in mind. But the National History Museum is something that is closest to being helpful. So thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. If you have any feedback about this series, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'm open to suggestions because this is a quite new thing. I'll probably change it up a little bit for the next episode. So if you have any ideas, feel free to list them. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.